What if some of history's greatest secrets were never meant to be found? In this episode of Epoch Ancient Mysteries, we uncover 10 strange artifacts and accounts, each one challenging what we know about lost civilizations, unexplained technology, and mysterious disappearances. Bimini Road. In 1968, two divers exploring the turquoise waters off North Bimini Island in the Bahamas noticed something startling beneath the surface: a long, curving line of massive limestone blocks resting on the seafloor. Each stone was roughly rectangular, some as long as a small car, laid out in a formation that seemed too deliberate to be chance. Locals began calling it the Bimini Road, and almost immediately speculation erupted that these submerged stones were the remains of a lost civilization, perhaps even a fragment of the legendary Atlantis. The formation lies in about 6 meters of water and stretches for nearly a kilometer before tapering off into smaller, scattered blocks. Many stones fit together with surprising precision, edges aligned as if once part of a paved causeway or quay. Some rest atop others, giving the impression of collapsed walls. Divers report right-angled corners, flat upper surfaces, and a continuous alignment that arcs gently along the sandy bottom, details that fuel the argument for human construction. Yet mainstream geologists contend the stones are nothing more than beach rock, coastal limestone that fractured naturally along joints, then slid seaward during ancient storms and sea level changes. They point to similar formations elsewhere in the Caribbean, where rectangular blocks break off from shorelines and settle in roughly linear arrays. Close inspection of Bimini's blocks reveals internal layering typical of natural sedimentary rock, not quarried slabs. Still, questions linger. Critics of the natural theory note the consistent thickness of the blocks and the way many appear to rest on smaller, support stones, resembling a foundation. Sonar surveys have hinted at additional submerged terraces beyond the visible road, feeding theories of a larger complex now buried by shifting sands. Carbon dating of shells cemented within the stones suggests the beach rock itself formed roughly 2,000 to 3,500 years ago, late by Atlantean standards but early enough to coincide with prehistoric maritime cultures. To date, no unequivocal artifacts, pottery, tools, or carvings have been recovered from the site. Core samples drilled into the stones reveal natural composition, yet the puzzle of their orderly placement remains. Were ancient builders adapting natural slabs into a functional jetty? Or is the alignment an illusion born of pattern-seeking eyes and undersea erosion? Multiple expeditions, including teams from the University of Miami and the Smithsonian, have mapped and photographed the road in detail, but no consensus emerges. Believers see the first roadway of a vanished island empire. Skeptics see geology at work, sculpting coincidence from chaos. Half a century after its discovery, the Bimini Road still disappears into clear blue water, inviting divers, dreamers, and scientists alike to decide whether its stones were laid by nature or by forgotten hands. Nazca Lines Hummingbird. High in the arid plains of southern Peru, a strange figure stretches across the desert floor. A hummingbird, perfectly stylized, with a long beak, gracefully outstretched wings, and an unmistakable symmetry only truly visible from the sky. Known as one of the most iconic geoglyphs among the Nazca Lines, the hummingbird measures approximately 93 meters long and remains one of archaeology's most captivating enigmas. The Nazca Lines themselves span more than 500 square kilometers, comprising hundreds of shapes, from simple straight lines and geometric patterns to complex animal forms like spiders, monkeys, and birds. But among them, the hummingbird stands out, both for its elegance and for the mystery it embodies. Created by removing the oxidized top layer of desert gravel to expose the lighter ground beneath, the lines have remained largely intact for over 1,000 years due to the region's dry, windless climate. Mainstream archaeologists date the lines to between 500 BCE and 500 CE, attributing them to the Nazca culture. Some scholars believe the geoglyphs served ritual or astronomical purposes. The hummingbird's orientation, its beak pointing to the sunrise at the summer solstice, has been cited as potential evidence of a solar calendar. Others propose the lines formed a giant map, perhaps used in processions or religious ceremonies, with the hummingbird symbolizing fertility or seasonal change. Yet despite these theories, no definitive explanation exists. The precision of the design, created without any aerial perspective, continues to baffle experts. How could an ancient civilization, without access to flight or high vantage points, produce such accurate figures that span dozens of meters? Some suggest they used grid drawings and surveying ropes, Others argue the scale and proportion hint at techniques we have yet to fully understand. The hummingbird's form, an animal not native to the desert but instead associated with rainforests, adds another layer of intrigue. Was it a symbolic plea to the gods for water? A reference to trade or myth? Or something else entirely? And why would so much effort be spent on a figure only viewable from the sky, centuries before humans ever took flight? Alternative theorists have speculated wildly: landing strips for ancient aircraft, messages to extraterrestrials, or remnants of a forgotten aerial technology. While such ideas remain outside the academic mainstream, they reflect the deep and persistent mysteries surrounding the geoglyphs. Despite decades of research, satellite imaging, and drone photography, the true purpose of the Nazca hummingbird, like many of its desert neighbors, remains elusive. Carved into the earth yet visible only from above, it stands as a silent question etched into the Peruvian plateau, daring us to look deeper into the minds and motives of the ancients. Green Children of Woolpit. In the quiet countryside of 12th century Suffolk, England, a tale emerged that would perplex historians, folklorists, and scholars for centuries. In the village of Woolpit, nestled near Berry Street, Edmonds, harvesters made a bizarre discovery: 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, standing near a wolf trap. They were not only disoriented and speaking an unknown language, but their skin was said to be an unmistakable shade of green. According to the chroniclers Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh, the children wore unfamiliar clothing and refused all food for several days until they found raw beans, which they consumed ravenously. Over time, they adapted to local food, and as their diet changed, the green hue of their skin gradually faded. Tragically, the boy soon became ill and died, but the girl survived and eventually learned to speak fluent English. When questioned about their origins, the girl gave a haunting account. She claimed they came from a land called St. Martin's Land, a place of perpetual twilight where the sun never rose fully and everything was dim and green. She explained they had been tending their father's cattle when they followed a strange sound, perhaps a bell, and suddenly found themselves in Woolpit, emerging from a cavern into the blinding daylight. Over the years, the girl was baptized, took the name Agnes, and reportedly lived a relatively normal life. She even married and settled in King's Lynn. Yet the origin of her tale, and of her and her brother's apparent otherworldliness, has never been explained. Scholars have proposed a range of theories. Some suggest the children were Flemish refugees whose parents were killed during conflicts in nearby regions, and whose odd appearance was the result of malnutrition or chlorosis, a type of anemia that can give the skin a greenish tint. Their strange language could have been a regional Flemish dialect unknown to the local population. Others have pointed to folklore traditions, suggesting the story is an allegory or morality tale absorbed into local legend. But more fringe theories offer wilder explanations. Some propose the children emerged from a subterranean world, linking the story to ancient myths of hollow earth realms or lost inner civilizations. Others interpret their tale as one of interdimensional travel or even contact with extraterrestrial life, with St. Martin's Land interpreted as a parallel world or alien environment accessed by accident. No physical evidence remains. Only the centuries-old accounts, strangely consistent and detailed, preserved in monastic chronicles. Were the Green Children simply displaced orphans misunderstood by a rural population? Or does their story hint at a deeper, stranger reality briefly intersecting with our own? To this day, the Green Children of Woolpit remain one of medieval England's most enduring and unsettling mysteries, a tale of color, language, and origin that refuses to fade. Burroughs Cave Artifacts. In 1982, a man named Russell E. Burrough claimed to have made a stunning discovery near Olney, Illinois, a cave filled with hundreds of ancient artifacts, all of which seem to point toward a forgotten chapter of human history in North America. The location? A hillside along the Little Wabash River. The contents? Allegedly gold coins, carved stones, tablets inscribed with ancient languages, and even sarcophagi containing mummified remains. Burroughs asserted that he stumbled upon a hidden entrance that led to a subterranean chamber lined with artifacts. What made these relics so extraordinary was not just their number, but their apparent origin. Many featured a mix of Egyptian, Greek, Phoenician, and even Hebrew symbols. Some carvings resembled ancient ships. Others depicted bearded men in robes, Egyptian-style figures, and inscriptions in alphabets that appeared to resemble Latin or Iberian Punic script. Supporters of the discovery hailed it as evidence of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, proof that ancient Mediterranean civilizations had traveled to the Americas long before Columbus. If true, it would rewrite the history of exploration, challenging long-held academic views about the isolation of early American cultures. But mainstream archaeologists have rejected Burroughs' claims. The artifacts were never unearthed under formal excavation. No credible peer-reviewed studies or carbon dating were ever published. And Burroughs himself refused to reveal the exact location of the cave, citing fears of looting and government interference. Skeptics argue that the artifacts are modern forgeries. Linguistic experts have noted inconsistencies and invented alphabets, while art historians point out that many symbols are anachronistic or culturally mismatched. Some carvings seem too simplistic or stylized to be authentic, and others appear to blend multiple ancient cultures in ways not found in the archaeological record. Despite the controversy, Burroughs' cave has developed a cult following. Researchers, authors, and fringe theorists continue to study the artifacts, convinced they hold secrets suppressed by mainstream academia. Some believe the cave contains relics from the lost tribes of Israel or survivors of Atlantis, while others link it to ancient migrations from the Old World that left behind hidden colonies in the Americas. Today, the true story of Burroughs' cave remains unresolved. No public excavation has taken place, and most of the artifacts are in private hands. To the scientific community, it's a cautionary tale of pseudoscience and hoax. But to others, it's a mystery still buried, awaiting the moment when history is finally ready to be rewritten. Dropa stones. High in the Bayan Har Mountains of China, near the Tibetan border, a discovery in 1938 sparked one of the most persistent and perplexing legends in alternative archaeology. In a remote cave system known as Bayan Kerala, a Chinese archaeologist named Chi Pu Ti allegedly uncovered a series of small graves containing strange skeletal remains, beings with unusually large skulls and frail bodies that some likened more to extraterrestrials than ancient humans. But the real mystery was what lay beside them: hundreds of carved stone discs, each about 9 inches in diameter, with a precise hole in the center and a spiral groove carved from edge to center. These so-called Dropa stones were unlike anything seen before. The grooves, when examined closely, appeared to be composed of tiny hieroglyphic markings, so delicate they required magnification to be studied. According to later claims, when deciphered, the inscriptions allegedly told a story of a spaceship that crashed in the region 12,000 years ago, of small beings, the Dropa, who could not return to their home world, and of their eventual contact and interbreeding with local tribes. The implications were enormous. If the story was true, the Dropa stones would represent not only physical proof of alien contact in antiquity, but also a cross-cultural record of survival, integration, and memory spanning millennia. But here is where the mystery deepens. The original artifacts have never been verified by any reputable museum. The reported translations come from obscure or unverifiable sources, including a supposed Dr. Tsumam Nui, who allegedly published his findings in a Chinese journal that no one has been able to locate. Western journalists and researchers tried to trace the trail in the 1960s and 70s, but most ran into dead ends, conflicting reports, or were met with silence from Chinese authorities. Skeptics have dismissed the Dropa stones as a hoax, citing the absence of physical evidence, the lack of peer-reviewed documentation, and the suspiciously fantastical nature of the claims. Others argue the entire story may have been fabricated by early fringe writers to fuel ancient alien theories. Yet despite this, the legend persists, passed down through books, documentaries, and speculative circles. To this day, no confirmed Dropa stone resides in any museum or academic institution. The cave's site has never been publicly excavated or validated by mainstream archaeologists. Whether they were a forgotten cultural artifact, a grand hoax, or something far stranger, the Dropa stones remain an enduring enigma, etched in stone and wrapped in silence. Dighton Rock. Lying along the banks of the Taunton River in Massachusetts is a granite boulder unlike any other. Measuring about 11 feet long, 5 feet high, and covered in mysterious carvings, the Dighton Rock has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and explorers for over 3 centuries. The surface of the rock is densely inscribed with petroglyphs, symbols, geometric shapes, human figures, and what some interpret as ancient scripts, etched deep into its dark brown surface. But no one can say for certain who made them, when, or why. First officially documented in 1680 by Reverend John Danforth, the rock has been a subject of wild speculation ever since. The carvings show no obvious narrative, and their style doesn't match the known iconography of local Native American tribes. This has led to a wave of theories, some plausible and others far more controversial. Some believe the petroglyphs were created by the indigenous peoples of the region, perhaps the Wampanoag, and represent spiritual or historical symbols whose meanings have been lost. Others propose that the rock is evidence of pre-Columbian contact from far-off civilizations. In the 18th and 19th centuries, scholars and adventurers floated theories linking the carvings to Phoenicians, Norse explorers, Portuguese navigators, even Chinese mariners. The most famous claim came from a Portuguese-American antiquarian named Edmund de Labar, who argued in the early 20th century that the carvings included the name of Miguel Corte Real, a Portuguese explorer who vanished in 1502. According to his theory, Corte Real reached North America and carved the message before perishing in the New World. Modern archaeologists remain skeptical. Radiocarbon dating of the rock is impossible, and no conclusive evidence links the petroglyphs to any specific culture. Moreover, many of the more exotic theories rely heavily on subjective interpretation, reading into patterns that may not actually be script or meaningful symbols. The lack of context or associated artifacts makes the carvings difficult to classify, and the rock's centuries of exposure have eroded many of the finer details. Despite this, Dighton Rock continues to inspire fascination. It now resides in a small museum housed in a protective structure at Dighton Rock State Park. Visitors come from around the world to peer at the enigmatic symbols and ponder their origin. Whether it's the work of local tribes, ancient mariners, or something else entirely, the Dighton Rock remains an unsolved puzzle, one that offers no clear answers, only questions carved into stone. Stone spheres of Costa Rica. Scattered across the jungles and plains of southern Costa Rica lie hundreds of nearly perfect stone spheres, some small enough to hold in your hand, others weighing over 15 tons and measuring more than 2 meters in diameter. Known locally as Las Bolas, these mysterious artifacts were first brought to international attention in the 1930s during banana plantation development in the Diquis Delta region. Workers clearing land stumbled upon these strange orbs buried beneath layers of earth, and accidentally damaged many of them in the process. What makes the spheres so fascinating isn't just their size or symmetry, but the complete lack of understanding about how they were made, why, or by whom. The stones are primarily composed of granodiorite, a rock not found near the delta, meaning ancient artisans must have transported and shaped the boulders using unknown techniques, long before the arrival of metal tools or wheels. Most estimates place their creation between 600 and 1000 CE, possibly by the Diquis culture, a now-vanished civilization that left behind no written language and little archaeological evidence. The tools used, the methods for achieving such remarkable roundness, and the original locations of the spheres remain elusive. Some were found in geometric alignments, lines, triangles, and curves, leading to speculation about astronomical or ceremonial purposes. Others were clearly relocated from their original settings, further complicating efforts to determine their intended use. Over time, myths grew around the spheres. Local legends claim they were created by giants, or softened by a magical potion that allowed the stones to be molded by hand. Some believe they mark burial sites, symbolize tribal power, or even hold cosmic significance. Fringe theories suggest connections to Atlantis, aliens, or ancient global navigation systems. Modern researchers have scanned and measured the spheres, confirming that many are nearly mathematically perfect. But despite these efforts, the true purpose of the stone spheres has never been conclusively identified. Looting, relocation, and environmental damage have erased much of the context in which they were originally found, leaving only the objects themselves and their silence. Today, the stone spheres of Costa Rica are protected as national treasures and recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site. Yet they remain as enigmatic as the day they were unearthed, perfectly round, hauntingly still, and carved by hands we may never understand. Golden hats. Towering and glittering like something out of myth, the golden hats of Bronze Age Europe are among the most bizarre and unexplained artifacts ever discovered. So far, 4 of these tall, conical hats have been unearthed, crafted entirely from thin sheets of gold, delicately embossed with intricate bands of symbols, and dating back to between 1000 and 800 BC. The most well-known examples include the golden hat of Schifferstadt, Germany, the Avanton gold cone, France, the Berlin gold hat, and the golden cone of Eselsdorfbuch. All were found in Central and Western Europe, often in isolation, with no associated burials or settlements to provide context. Standing up to 90 centimeters tall, each hat is surprisingly light yet exquisitely decorated, covered with repeated patterns of dots, circles, zigzags, and concentric bands. What makes them so mysterious isn't just their craftsmanship, but their apparent function. Were these towering hats royal regalia? Ritual objects? Symbols of religious or celestial power. Some scholars believe they were ceremonial headdresses worn by Bronze Age priests or shamans, figures who may have served as both astronomers and spiritual leaders. Recent studies suggest the decorations are not merely decorative, but encode a complex lunisolar calendar. By interpreting the bands of symbols, wearers could track lunar cycles and solar years, possibly helping coordinate agriculture, festivals, or rituals across entire regions. If this is true, the golden hats represent one of the most advanced calendrical systems in prehistoric Europe, hidden in plain sight on the surface of gleaming ceremonial gear. Yet many questions remain unanswered. Why were so few of these objects made? Why are they so tall and conical? Why is there no accompanying written explanation, and why were they buried or hidden? Some researchers have proposed that the hats symbolized a divine connection between the heavens and the earth, literally pointing upward toward the sky gods. Others see them as portable monuments of power, worn only on specific occasions and by individuals of immense ritual authority. Despite ongoing research and high-resolution imaging, the golden hats remain a shimmering enigma, objects that blend metallurgy, mathematics, and mystery into a single, dazzling form. We may never know who first forged them, or how many more remain hidden in the soil of Europe, waiting to catch the light of day once more. In this episode of Epoch Ancient Mysteries, we explored 10 ancient puzzles, from cryptic scrolls and celestial engravings to strange visitors and impossible stones. They weren't legends. They were found, cataloged, and still remain unsolved. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to share the video, drop a comment with your favorite mystery, and subscribe for more untold stories from the ancient world.